I want to begin with the man at the centre of the Russian rot. I want to talk about the collapse of Russian morale and why. And it starts with Putin himself. His regime today is a grotesque parody of the confident strongman image he once projected. It's riddled with secrecy, lies, and despair. And increasingly, it's difficult to say with any confidence that Putin is even alive, or at least still the one issuing the orders. In October 2023, the internet and intelligence networks buzzed with the reports that Putin had suffered a fatal heart attack at his Valdai residence. It was claimed that a body double had replaced him in public appearances, especially during critical events such as televised addresses and military inspections. And indeed, those events have been fairly amply added to with AI footage and AI tweaks to try and tidy up the mess that is the modern Putin. You only have to compare the puffed-faced Putin of today with the gaunt Putin of yesterday. Russian XR media, including General SVR, insisted that the real Putin had died and that a shadowy cabal around the Security Council was maintaining a facade of continuity. The evidence was circumstantial but curious: altered gait, erratic facial expressions, inconsistent ear shapes, and the rapid deterioration in voice patterns, all contrasted with earlier footage. Kremlin denials only deepening the suspicion. The shifting cheekbones. If nothing else, the very plausibility of a death cover-up speaks volumes about the opacity and the unreliability of the regime. In the more lurid sections of Western biographical literature, there have long been claims that Putin's aggressively macho image masks deep-seated insecurity and possibly repressed sexuality. The Swiss-German journalist Erich Smicht-Inboom even suggested that Putin had a homosexual past from his early KGB days in Dresden, and linked this to his obsession with dominance and secrecy. That was picked up by Belkovsky in a biography printed in Russia, and Belkovsky survived to tell the tale. He wasn't thrown out of a top-story window. The veracity of these claims is dubious and perhaps irrelevant, except in how they may have influenced Putin's peculiar combination of performative masculinity and cultural repression. Apparently, he preferred dogs to his wife. Russia's anti-LGBTQ legislation, for instance, may reveal more about the president's psychology than his morality. More damaging than any rumour is the apparent defection of his alleged daughter, Elizaveta Krivonogic, also known as Luisa Rozova, and now Elizaveta Rudnova. Once the face of opulence and privilege on social media, she has resurfaced in Paris as a vocal critic of the war and implicitly of Putin, her father, himself. Her recent Telegram post was brutal in its simplicity. He took millions of lives. She didn't name him, but the reference was clear. A symbolic act of generational rejection. This is Putin's own flesh and blood denouncing him from exile. Her transformation from designer-clad darling of oligarchic privilege to anti-war gallery assistant in Paris speaks to the moral and emotional fatigue spreading among Russia's disillusioned elite. Nowhere is this morale lower than in Touretsk. The city Russia has turned into a charnel house. Over 50,000 Russian soldiers have been killed or wounded in this one city alone. Major General Kaminsky of Ukraine's 100th Mechanized Brigade described it as a stadium of death. Putin's regime has committed wave after wave of soldiers to take this city, not for its symbolic value nor for its strategic genius, but for cold transport access and to maintain the illusion of momentum. Even after claiming Touretsk was liberated, fighting continued. Russia had not captured the city. The claim was a lie, exposed within days by Ukrainian counter-offensives that encircled Russian troops in northern districts. Putin now fights for a city he already pretended to have taken. Russian troops are not just dying, they are dying pointlessly. Ukrainian forces have developed sophisticated drone networks combining thermal imaging, first-person view, the FPV kamikaze drones, and pinpoint artillery. Ukrainian tactics, like those near Lyman, where Roman-style ambushes are reportedly achieving 66-1 kill ratios, are humiliating Russian conventional forces. Russian infantry are often sent forward on motorcycles without adequate reconnaissance, only to be picked off by drone-guided artillery or direct drone strikes. In many cases, Ukrainian drone footage shows Russian troops abandoning vehicles, running blindly into forests, or lying wounded in open fields with no extraction available. And Russia, in its turn, uses drones to attack civilians, chasing civilians down the street. Civilian women down the street chased by drones. Russia is not just bleeding soldiers, it is bleeding cash. The National Wealth Fund, once stood at $112.7 billion, has now been drained to $21 billion. Sanctions, oil price caps, and Ukraine's targeted strikes on refineries and pipelines have throttled the Russian energy sector. Russia is still producing oil, but it has nowhere to sell it or store it. Tankers float aimlessly in international waters. Refining capacity is collapsing. Shadow fleets are being hunted down. China and India are beginning to refuse tankers. The war effort now consumes a staggering 38 to 40% of the national budget, with pay bonuses for soldiers exceeding $8 billion a year. Most bonuses are paid only after a period of service, a cruel ploy, given that many die before ever collecting them. What we are seeing is a return to 1916, a corrupt, exhausted state, on the verge of civil war, a disillusioned army, economic decay, elites abandoning the centre, a ruler possibly dead or at best irrelevant, and crucially hundreds of thousands of trained and traumatized veterans returning home with weapons, bitterness and no clear purpose. Russia is creating its own version of the Freikorps. Whether Putin is alive, a ghost, or a man propped up by injections and doubles, the truth is this. The war has become a political death spiral. The body count is too high. The economy is too broken. The lies are too obvious. Even his daughter is condemning him. And the army, once his tool of power, is falling apart not just physically, but spiritually. If he's alive, he practically has no tool left. The collapse of Russian morale has already begun. The only question now that is left is how far and how fast that Russian morale will fall, and whether in the end it takes the entire edifice of Putinism with it.